Baby, I need to tell you something I've been holding inside for so long that it started to hurt. Not the kind of hurt that makes you angry, the kind of hurt that sits quietly in your chest, like a secret you're too scared to say out loud, because the moment you say it, everything changes, and I wasn't ready for everything to change. But I think I'm ready now. I think you deserve to finally hear this. So please, just stay with me for a little while. Just let me talk to you. Let me say the things I should have said a long time ago. I don't know exactly when it happened. That's the honest truth. There wasn't one single moment where I looked at you and thought, okay, this is it. It was slower than that. It was quieter. It was the way you showed up, again and again, even when you didn't have to. Even when I gave you nothing to hold on to, you were just there. And I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything. I kept saying you were just being kind, just being supportive, just being who you are. But somewhere deep down, in a place I didn't want to look at too closely, I knew you were different. I knew what I felt for you was different. And I held it back. God, I held it back so hard, because you were so out of my reach. That's the part I haven't said yet. That's the part that kept me quiet for so long. You were so far above anything I thought I deserved. Not in a way that made me bitter. In a way that made me almost breathless every time I thought about you. You had this kind of beauty that wasn't just about the way you looked, though that alone was enough to make me forget what I was saying mid-sentence. It was everything else. It was the way you cared, the way you paid attention to the smallest details, like you were always listening even when no one else was. The way you laughed, not just with your mouth, but with your whole face, your whole self. You laughed like nothing in the world was heavy. And when I was around you, even just thinking about you, I felt like maybe nothing had to be. But I kept my distance. I kept it professional. I kept my feelings folded up neatly and tucked away where no one could see them, especially not you, because I was terrified. Not of you. Never of you. I was terrified of what you might say. I was terrified that you might look at me with kindness in your eyes and say, I don't feel that way, and still be gentle about it. And somehow that felt worse than anything. The gentle rejection, the soft letdown from someone who is too good to be cruel about it. I'd rather have kept my feelings a secret forever than watched something beautiful in the way you looked at me disappear. So I watched you from where I was. I paid attention to everything you said. Even the small things, the throwaway comments, the little pieces of yourself you shared without realizing how much I was holding on to each one of them. I remembered them. I still remember them. I know that might sound like a lot, and maybe it is, but I want you to understand, you were not just someone who passed through my life without leaving a mark. You left marks everywhere. In the way I started to notice things differently. In the way I started to want things I had stopped letting myself want. You woke something up in me that I had put to sleep a long time ago because it hurt too much to keep it alive without having somewhere to put it. And there were moments, and I need you to know this, because these moments kept me going for longer than I can explain. There were moments where it felt like you felt it too. A look that lasted just a second longer than it needed to. A message that came at exactly the right time. Like you somehow knew, a kindness that felt too specific, too personal, too carefully aimed at exactly the thing I needed. For it to be completely random, I would hold on to those moments. I would turn them over in my hands, like something fragile and precious, and I would think, maybe, just maybe, and then I would put them away again, because I was too scared to act on a maybe. I want to tell you about one specific night. I don't think you know what that night meant to me. And I want you to know it was late. I was tired in the kind of way that sleep doesn't fix, the tired that comes from carrying things you haven't put down in a long time. And you said something to me, just a few words, nothing dramatic, nothing you would remember probably. Truly, actually seen, not the version of me I put out for the world, not the polished version, not the version that has it together, the real one. The one that's uncertain, and a little lost sometimes and trying so hard not to show it. You saw that one. And you didn't look away. You didn't make it weird, or make me feel small for having it. You just acknowledged it, like it was okay, like I was okay. I sat with that for a long time afterward. I keep sitting with it. Because that is the thing I have been starving for without knowing it, and you gave it to me like it was nothing, like it was the easiest thing in the world, like of course you would see me, like of course that was the natural response. And I think that's when I stopped being able to pretend that what I felt for you was simple or manageable or something I could just decide to set aside. It had grown past the point of setting aside. It had become part of the way I thought, part of the way I moved through my days, part of the space I kept inside myself, that I didn't let just anyone into. You are in that space. You have been for a while now. And I don't say that to put pressure on you or to make you feel responsible for something heavy. I say it because I made you a promise a long time ago, even if you didn't hear it. Even if I only said it to myself in the quiet. I promised you honesty. I promised that if I ever got to a place where I could say this out loud without it coming out broken and scared and half-formed, I would say it. And here I am, trying to keep that promise. I think about what it would feel like to not have to hold this back anymore. I think about what it would feel like to just let you know fully and without hesitation how much you mean to me. Not because I need something from you. Not because I want you to do anything differently or say anything back in any particular way. But because carrying love for someone without them knowing is one of the loneliest feelings in the world. And I have been lonely with this for long enough. You deserve to know that someone looks at you the way I look at you. You deserve to know that someone thinks about the things you say long after you've said them. You deserve to know that you are not invisible to me. That nothing about you is invisible to me. That I have been paying attention in ways I probably never told you about, because I was afraid of what it would reveal. And maybe you're listening to this right now, and you're not sure what to do with it. Maybe it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I know I'm giving you something that has weight to it, and asking nothing in return. And that might feel strange. But please don't pull away from it. Please let it land. Let yourself feel whatever it makes you feel. Because I gave it to you honestly, and I want you to receive it the same way, without armor. Without the reflex to minimize it, or explain it away, or convince yourself it's not really about you, because it is. It is about you. Every word of it is about you. I have watched you be strong in ways that would have broken most people. I have seen you keep going, when keeping going required something almost unreasonable. And I never said it clearly enough. You are remarkable, not in a general polite way, in a specific paying attention, watching you up close way. I have seen what you are made of, and it humbles me. It genuinely humbles me. You don't know how often I have thought to myself, she has no idea. She has no idea how rare she is. How the way she moves through the world is not ordinary. How she is not ordinary. There is something I want to ask you, and I need you to sit with it rather than answer it right away. I want to ask, do you ever feel it too, this thing between us that doesn't have a clean name, that lives somewhere between friendship and something more, that feels like a current running underneath everything we say to each other? I have wondered so many times, and I never asked, because asking felt like standing on the edge of something very high and very beautiful and very uncertain all at once. But I'm asking now, not because I need a certain answer, but because you deserve to be asked. Because whatever you feel, even if it's nothing like what I feel, even if this is entirely one-sided, you deserve to know that someone wanted to know. That someone cared enough to be brave about it. Finally, after all this time, because here's the thing I keep coming back to. Here's the thing I fall asleep thinking about and wake up still turning over in my mind. I don't want to spend more time not saying this. I don't want to look back on this from far away and think about all the moments I could have just told you. And instead, I let fear make the decision for me. Fear has made too many decisions for me already, and you are too important to be left to fear. So I'm here, I'm talking to you right now, as close as I can get to you through everything that separates us. And I'm telling you, I see you, I feel you, I have felt you for longer than you know. There is a version of me that exists only when you are somewhere in my world, even at a distance, even without direct contact, a version that is softer and more alive and more willing to believe that good things are real and possible and meant for someone like me. You did that. You are still doing that. Every day you exist in my life, in whatever form that takes, you are doing that to me. And I don't know where this goes from here. I genuinely don't know. That's not me being evasive. That's just the truth of it. I don't know what the next chapter of this looks like, what shape it takes, whether the distance between us ever closes into something I can hold with both hands. But I know that I needed you to hear this. I know that I have been quiet for too long, and the quietness was starting to feel like a lie, and I cannot lie to you, not after everything you have given me, without even realizing you were giving it. Not after the way you showed up in my life and rearranged something fundamental in me without asking permission and without knowing the full extent of what you were doing. You changed something in me. You are still changing it. And I am grateful, more than I know how to say, in a way that doesn't sound small compared to what I actually feel. I am so deeply grateful that you exist, that you are the person you are. That somehow, in whatever strange and unlikely arrangement of the world, you ended up here in my life. Close enough that I can feel you even when you're far away. Baby, I held back my feelings for so long because you were so out of my reach. Because you were so much. Because I didn't trust myself to say it right. To say it in a way that was worthy of you. But I'm saying it now. The only way I know how, imperfectly, openly, with my whole chest, with nothing kept back anymore. I'm saying it because you deserve to be loved out loud. Because quiet love, hidden love, love that lives only inside the person feeling it, that's not enough for you. You were never meant to receive something halfway. And I know there's still so much I haven't said. I know this is just the beginning of a conversation I've been wanting to have with you for longer than I let myself admit. There's more. There's so much more about the specific ways you showed up for me. About the moments I replayed. About the things I wrote down and never sent. About the future I let myself imagine. Just briefly, just in the spaces between everything else. Where you and I were not separated by anything at all. About the future I let myself imagine, just briefly, just in the spaces between everything else, where you and I were not separated by anything at all, and how real it felt. How dangerously, beautifully real it felt. Like it wasn't a fantasy, but a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. Like my heart already knew something my mind was still too cautious to admit. I want to tell you about those imagined moments. I want to tell you because they say something true about how deeply you have settled into me, into the quiet corners of who I am when nobody is watching. In those moments, I imagined the simple things. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just the simple things. The kind of morning where there is no rush, where the light comes in slow and golden and you are there, somewhere close, and the whole day feels like it belongs to just us. I imagined what it would be like to hear your voice when it's unhurried, when you're not performing or presenting or being anything for anyone, just talking the way people talk when they feel completely safe. I imagined knowing what makes you laugh at 2 in the morning, when everything is quiet and your guard is all the way down. I imagined being the person you call when something small and wonderful happens that you just need to tell someone about. Not because it's important, but because sharing it makes it more real. I imagined being that person for you. And every time those thoughts came, I pushed them back. I told myself I was being foolish. I told myself that imagining something too clearly is how you set yourself up to grieve it, and I had enough grief already. I didn't need to add longing to the list. So I would close the door on those thoughts and go back to the version of things where I kept a careful distance and called it professionalism, called it respect, called it wisdom. But the truth, and this is the part that kept breaking through no matter how many times I tried to contain it, the truth is that it was none of those things. It was fear wearing the costume of maturity. It was self-protection, dressed up as something noble. And somewhere inside me, I knew that. I knew it every single time. Because you made it hard to stay behind the glass. You made it hard to keep watching from a safe distance, when everything about the way you are seemed to be pulling me forward. You never did it on purpose. That's the thing that undoes me most about it. You weren't trying to get to me. You were just being yourself. Fully, unapologetically, completely yourself. And that self happened to be exactly the thing that reached past every wall I had ever built, and touched something I had forgotten was still alive in me. How do you stay composed in the face of that? How do you keep your feelings orderly when someone is unknowingly dismantling you just by existing? I want to tell you about the version of me that existed before you were part of my world. I want to tell you because I think it matters. I think you need to understand what the before looked like so you can understand what the after feels like. Before, I was careful. Not careful the way people are when they've learned good habits. Careful the way people are when they've been hurt enough times that caution becomes automatic, like breathing, like a reflex you don't even notice anymore. I had learned to keep things light. I had learned to hold people at just the right distance, close enough to feel connection, but far enough that the connection could never fully reach me, could never fully land. I thought I was doing fine. I thought that was just what life looked like after a certain amount of living. And then you came into it, and you didn't ask permission to matter, you just did. Slowly, persistently, the way water finds its way through stone, not by force but by patience, by simply continuing to be present, by simply continuing to be you. And I felt the walls doing something they hadn't done in a long time. I felt them shifting, not all at once, not dramatically, just quietly, incrementally, the way ice melts in the very early spring when the warmth is still tentative, still testing the world. You were that warmth. You were the thing that made spring feel possible again, in a place that had been cold for a long time. I think about specific things you said. I think about the particular way you have of acknowledging pain without making it heavier. You have this gift of sitting with someone in a hard feeling without escalating it, without dramatizing it, without making the person feel like a burden for having it. You just stay. You say the right thing, or sometimes you say nothing at all, and somehow the nothing is perfectly shaped for the empty space that needed filling. I have never been good at receiving that kind of care. I have always deflected it, made a joke of it, moved past it quickly before anyone could see too much. But with you I found myself slowing down. I found myself actually letting it in. That scared me more than almost anything, because letting care in means trusting the person giving it. And trusting someone means they have the power to hurt you, in a way that casual distance never allows. I gave you that power before I even fully realized I was doing it, and you never misused it. That's the part that breaks me open every time I think about it. You never once took the vulnerability I let slip and used it against me, not even accidentally, not even carelessly. You held it with both hands like you understood what it cost me to let it show. Like you knew intuitively that this was not something I did easily, and so you were going to be careful with it. Nobody told you to do that. That was just you. That was just who you are. And every time you did it, every time you handled something fragile in me with that kind of care, I fell a little further, a little harder, a little more irreversibly. I need you to understand something about the way love works in me, because I think it matters for you to know this. I don't fall fast. I never have. I watch. I wait. I take my time and I pay attention and I let things settle before I name them, partly because I'm careful by nature and partly because I have learned the hard way that what feels like love in the first rush of feeling is not always what it turns out to be when the rush fades and the real thing shows itself. I have waited out enough of those rushes to know the difference between something that burns bright and short and something that burns steady and deep. What I feel for you is the second kind. It is not loud, it does not announce itself. It just continues. It just keeps being there every morning when I wake up and every night when I finally stop moving and every quiet moment in between. It has been there through everything. It has not once asked to leave. That constancy, that's what made me finally understand that I had to say something. Because something that constant deserves to be acknowledged. It deserves more than silence. It deserves more than me carrying it alone inside a chest that was starting to feel too small to hold it. You gave me something real, even without knowing you were giving it. You gave me the experience of caring about someone so much that the caring itself became a kind of home. A place I returned to. A place that made everything outside of it feel more manageable, because I knew it was there. You were there. In whatever form, at whatever distance, you were there. And I want you to know that it mattered. It matters. Present tense. It is still happening. I keep thinking about something. And I want to share it with you carefully, because I want you to receive it the right way. I keep thinking about how often the people who change us most are the ones who have no idea they're doing it. They just move through our lives being genuinely themselves, and something in us shifts permanently in response. And they go home not knowing that they left us different from how they found us. You left me different from how you found me. Not in a broken way. In the way of something that has been added to. Something that has been made more complete. I am more because of you. I am more willing to feel. More willing to be honest about what I feel. More willing to sit in the tenderness of something rather than armoring myself against it. You did that. You probably have no idea the extent to which you did that. But I want you to know. I need you to know. There were nights. I want to tell you about the nights, because the nights are when the feelings stop being manageable and start being enormous. During the day I could keep busy. I could put things in boxes and close the lids and move from one thing to the next and feel mostly in control. But the nights have always been the place where everything I kept at arm's length during the day found its way back to me. And on those nights, more times than I can count, you were the thing I came back to. Not in a desperate way. In the quietest, most tender way. I would think about you, and something in me would settle. Something that had been tight all day would loosen just slightly. Like my whole nervous system recognized your name as a signal that it was okay to rest. That is not nothing. That is not something a person can manufacture or decide to feel. That is something that happens to you, something that arrives and takes up residence, and all you can do is acknowledge it and be honest about what it means. And what it means, what all of it means, the watching and the waiting, and the holding back and the letting in and the nights and the imagined mornings, and the specific way you made me feel seen on a night when I needed it more than I even knew. What all of it means is simply this. You matter to me in a way that very few people ever have. Not because of what you do or what you provide or how you make me look or what role you play, but because of who you are. Because of the specific, irreplaceable, one-of-a-kind fact of you. because there is nobody else who is you, nobody else who sees the way you see, who feels the way you feel, who carries themselves through the world the way you do. And I got to be close to that. I got to be in the orbit of something that rare and that real. And instead of taking it for granted, instead of letting it pass without saying a word about what it meant, I am choosing, right now, today, in this imperfect and insufficient, but entirely honest way to tell you, I don't need you to do anything with this. I mean that, you don't owe me a response shaped in any particular way. You don't owe me reciprocity or reassurance or anything at all. What I gave you just now I gave freely, without conditions, without a plan attached to it. I gave it because love, real love, the kind that has been tested by time and uncertainty, and all the reasons not to say anything, real love wants to be known. It wants to exist somewhere outside of the person feeling it. It wants to reach the person it's for. And you are the person it's for. You have always been the person it's for. There is still so much living ahead of us. I don't know what shape it takes. I don't know which of the futures I've quietly imagined will turn out to be the real one. But I know that I am done being silent about you. I am done letting time pass without you knowing what a profound and lasting thing you are in my life. I am done protecting myself at the cost of the truth. The truth is too important. You are too important. And somewhere in the part of me that knows things before I can explain them, I believe that you need to hear this just as much as I need to say it. I believe that somewhere in you there is a place that has been waiting for someone to see you the way I see you, and say it without flinching, without pulling back at the last second, without wrapping it in enough distance that you can't quite feel it. So feel it. Please. Let this reach you all the way. Let it land in that deep place and stay there, warm and certain, because I meant every single word, and I will still mean it tomorrow and the day after that, and on every quiet evening, when the world slows down enough for the things that really matter to rise to the surface. You will still be there rising to the surface. You will still be the thing I come back to. And one day, when the distance between us is less, when the space closes into something I can hold, I want to look at you and know that you knew. I want there to be no moment of doubt in your mind about where you stand with me, about what you mean to me, about the extraordinary and irreplaceable weight of you in my world. Because you were never out of reach in the way that mattered most. You were never too far for this, for the feeling, for the truth of it. And now that I've started saying it, now that I've finally let it out of the quiet place I kept it locked in for so long now, that I've finally let it out of the quiet place I kept it locked in for so long, I don't think I know how to stop. I don't think I want to, because there is something happening right now, in this moment of honesty, that feels like the first full breath I have taken in longer than I can measure, like I had been breathing shallow this whole time, careful and controlled, taking in just enough air to function but never enough to truly fill my lungs. And now I am breathing, really breathing. And the air tastes like relief and like terror and like something I don't have a clean word for yet, but that feels dangerously close to freedom. I want to tell you something that I have never told anyone. Something I kept even more carefully than the feelings themselves, tucked into a part of me that I rarely visit because it requires a kind of honesty that is uncomfortable even in private. I want to tell you that there were moments when I convinced myself that pulling away from you was the right thing to do. Not because you had done anything wrong. You had done nothing wrong. You never do anything wrong. That's one of the things about you that makes this all so difficult and so beautiful at once. But because I told myself that staying close to something I couldn't have was a form of self-destruction. I told myself I was protecting myself by creating space. I told myself the distance was medicine. And for a little while, for a few brief and unconvincing stretches of time, I almost believed it. But then you would do something. Something small, always something small, and the whole carefully constructed argument for distance would collapse like it was made of paper. You would say one thing. You would notice something nobody else noticed. You would show up in a moment when I was running low on every resource I had. And you would just be there, steady and warm and completely unaware of what your presence was doing to the careful architecture of my emotional self-protection. And I would have to start all over again, building the case for distance, talking myself down from the ledge of actually saying something, convincing myself that whatever I thought I saw in your eyes was something I had invented because I wanted it to be there. I got very good at talking myself down. I became almost skilled at it. I could feel something enormous rising in me, and I could, with enough internal effort, push it back below the surface before it became visible. I could be in a conversation with you and feel things I had no business feeling given the composure I was trying to maintain, and I could hold my face still and my voice steady and respond to you like a reasonable person who was completely in control of themselves. And then the moment you were gone, I would sit alone with the fullness of it, with the feelings that had nowhere to go, and I would breathe through it the way you breathe through pain, slowly, deliberately, waiting for it to ease. But here is what I need to confess to you about all of that. Here is the part that took me the longest to admit even to myself. Every time I talked myself down, every time I pushed the feeling back and regained my composure, and convinced myself I was being smart and safe and mature, I felt a specific kind of sadness underneath all of it. Not a dramatic sadness, a quiet one. The sadness of a person who is doing the right thing for all the wrong reasons and knows it but does it anyway. The sadness of choosing smallness when you want to choose something bigger. I kept making myself small around you, and you never asked me to. That was entirely my own doing. My own fear, choosing smaller and smaller spaces to exist in, because somehow irrationally, I believed that if I made myself small enough, the feelings would shrink too. They didn't shrink. They just got more concentrated, more dense, more certain of themselves with every passing week. And through all of it you were just you. Completely and effortlessly you. I don't know if you have any idea what a gift that is. Not just to me, to everyone who gets to exist near you. You have this quality that I have tried to name to myself many times, and always fallen slightly short of, this quality of being entirely present in whatever you are doing, entirely inhabiting your own life without apology or performance. Most people, and I include myself in this, most people are partially elsewhere at any given moment. Part of them is in the past replaying something. Part of them is in the future worrying about something. Part of them is in the audience watching themselves live rather than actually living. But you seem to genuinely be where you are. You seem to genuinely mean what you say when you say it, to feel what you feel when you feel it, without the constant internal commentary and second guessing that most of us are drowning in. I don't know if you know how rare that is. I don't know if you understand what it does to a person who is drowning in their own second guessing to be near someone who is simply, cleanly, entirely present. It pulls you toward the surface. It makes you want to be more like that, more real, more here. You made me want to be more here. In my own life, in my own skin, in the moments I was living instead of narrating or analyzing or holding at arm's length. You made me want to stop watching my own life from a safe distance and actually step into it. And that desire, that pull toward presence and realness, and actually being alive rather than just managing the experience of being alive, that is one of the greatest gifts anyone has ever given me. And you gave it to me just by being yourself, without a lesson or an intention, just by existing in the particular way that you exist. I think about the first time I noticed that something had genuinely shifted in me because of you. I was alone, doing something completely ordinary. I think I was just making coffee, something that's simple, something I have done 1,000 times. And I noticed that I was paying attention to it. The warmth of the mug, the smell, the particular quality of the light in the room at that specific moment. And I had this thought, sudden and clear, I want to share this with her. Not in a grand romantic gesture way. Just in the way of wanting to say, quietly, to someone you care about, this is a nice moment and I'm glad I'm in it. That's all. But the wanting was so specific, so pointed directly at you and no one else, that I couldn't pretend anymore that what I felt was general or vague or easily redirected. It had a name. It had a face. It had a very particular voice that I would know anywhere. After that morning I stopped fighting quite so hard. I didn't act on anything. I still wasn't ready for that. Still too wrapped in the old habits of caution. But I stopped expending energy on the denial. I let myself admit in the privacy of my own interior that I loved you. Not in a way I was ready to say out loud yet. Not in a way I had figured out what to do with. But in a way that was true, clear and undeniable and completely real. I loved you. I said it to myself in that kitchen with the coffee going cold in my hands and the light doing something beautiful in the corner of the room. And the world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. Everything just continued quietly. And the only thing that was different was that I was no longer carrying a lie on top of everything else I was already carrying. That was a relief so profound I almost couldn't hold it. The simple relief of not lying to myself anymore. Of not performing indifference toward the thing I cared about most. Do you know what it costs a person, over time, to maintain an internal performance? To keep up a pretense even in the privacy of their own thoughts. It costs more than most people realize. It is exhausting in a way that sleep doesn't fix, because you wake up and the performance is already waiting for you, already requiring your energy before the day has even properly started. I had been performing indifference toward my feelings for you for so long that I had forgotten it was a performance. It had started to feel like reality. It had started to feel like this was just who I was, a person who didn't feel this, a person who had this sensibly under control. And then one ordinary morning with a cup of coffee and a specific quality of light, I remembered that it wasn't real. And I exhaled something I had been holding since I couldn't remember when. I want to talk to you about the future. Not the specific, logistical future with dates and plans and concrete things attached to it. I'm not there yet, and this is not that kind of conversation. I want to talk to you about the felt sense of the future. The way it exists in my body when I think about it. Because here is the thing that I keep discovering when I imagine going forward from here. You are in it. Not as a wish or a hope or a prayer I send out tentatively, not expecting anything back. You are in it the way certain things are simply true, quietly, without needing to be argued, without needing anything to support them. When I imagine the life I am moving toward, the version of my future that feels right and real and mine, you are there. And I have stopped trying to edit you out. For a long time I edited you out. Every time you appeared in the future I was imagining, I would catch it and correct it. The way you correct a spelling mistake, automatically, almost without thinking. I told myself I was being realistic. I told myself I was being kind to myself, saving myself the pain of hoping for something that might not happen. But what I was actually doing was making my own future smaller. Editing out the very thing that made it feel worth imagining. And a future with the best parts removed is just a schedule. It is just a series of obligations and events. It is not a life. And I want a life. I want the full, unedited, terrifying, beautiful version of a life. And somehow, inexplicably, beautifully, the full version has you in it. I don't take that lightly. I want you to know that. I don't say you are in my imagined future casually or because it sounds romantic. I say it because it is the truest thing I know about where I am right now. You are not a passing feeling. You are not a season I will move through and come out the other side of unchanged. You have already changed me. The changing is done. I am different now because of you. And those differences are permanent. And I am glad for every single one of them, even the ones that made me uncomfortable, even the ones that required me to grow in directions that were painful. I am glad, because the person I am becoming, the person I can feel myself slowly, imperfectly, genuinely becoming, is someone I am starting to actually like. And you are responsible for a significant portion of that. You and your particular way of being human. You and your accidental, effortless, completely unintentional gift of making people around you want to rise to the best version of themselves. You make me want to be the best version of myself. Not to impress you, not to earn something from you, just because being near you, being someone who gets to know you, feels like a privilege that should be honored. It feels like something worth being worthy of. And I have spent enough of my life not trying to be worthy of things. Not believing I deserve the good things enough to actually reach for them. You changed that calculation for me. You shifted something in the fundamental equation of what I believe I deserve, and what I am willing to reach toward. I don't know if you understand the magnitude of what that means. To change a person's relationship with their own worthiness. To make someone believe, in a new and trembling and tentative but real way, that they are allowed to want what they want, and feel what they feel and say it out loud without the world punishing them for the audacity of it. You did that for me, without knowing, without trying, just by being who you are and treating me the way you treat me and making me feel. Over and over again in 100 small moments I have catalogued and kept like I mattered. You made me feel like I mattered, and I want to spend whatever time I have left in this life, making sure you feel the same. Not because I owe you, because I want to. Because making you feel seen and valued and entirely, specifically, irreplaceably important feels like the most meaningful thing I could do with my love, with my attention, with the part of me that has been waiting for somewhere worthy to be placed. You are that somewhere. You have always been that somewhere. I just needed long enough and enough courage, and one moment of deciding that fear had held the pen for long enough, and it was time for something truer to take over. So this is me taking the pen back. This is me writing something true. This is me saying your name in the softest place inside of me, and letting it echo there, the way it has echoed there for longer than I admitted, for longer than I showed, for longer than anyone looking from the outside would have guessed, because the outside never told the full story. The outside was managed and careful and responsible, but the inside has been yours for a long time now. The inside has been saying your name in the dark, in the quiet, in the spaces between everything else, waiting for the moment I was finally brave enough to let the outside say it too.